When I was younger, I really, really loved playing school. I actually don't think I stopped playing school until like fifth or sixth grade, maybe longer. But I remember thinking I needed to stop playing school because someone told me something like, I think you're a little bit too old to still be playing school. And so um, at that point, I was like, okay, let me maybe chill on this imaginary fake school thing. But I was so into this concept of teaching. And it was likely because I've grown up around teachers. My dad was a teacher. My aunt and cousin are teachers, and we have many more in the family. And I'm also sure my crush on my second grade teacher, Miss Pacheco, played a role in why I loved it so much. But the point I'm making is playing school was such an essential part of my childhood. I would literally go to school, pay attention to the every move of my teachers. I would watch their habits. I'd see how I'd see how they handled things. I'd revel in how they taught the class, and I'd memorize it. And then I'd come home, and instead of going outside to play, um, you know, I guess I was a weird child. I didn't go outside to play much. Instead, I would go into the room, get my whiteboard and my markers. I'd clear the area, and I would dive into my imagination and repeat the lessons that I learned that day. But this time, instead of being the student, I was the teacher. So if there was anything I didn't particularly like about what my teacher did in school, I felt empowered to create my own reality. Now, as the teacher, after school, in my fake classroom with my fake kids, and as a fake teacher. And just for the record, since I know there are probably different schools of thought in the world of playing school, I was firmly against using dolls or toys as students. Um, I was absolutely on team imagination only. I did not want stuffed animals sitting in front of me pretending to be the children. I wanted an open space and a fully imagined classroom, and I took it seriously. So much so that if someone tried to join me in my fake world and brought toys or dolls into the setup, I was thoroughly uninterested. Um, I was all about the fact that my unseen students were completely real, and I don't need a doll because they're real. Or if someone in my family came into the room while I was teaching and walked through the middle of my classroom, because of course I was commandeering like an actual space, but if they walked into the middle, I would be genuinely upset. I would yell, "You are stepping on my kids." And they would look at me like I was out of my mind, but they'd also, uh, you know, say, "Oh, I'm so, so sorry. Yes, let me not step on your kids." And they'd apologize and keep it moving because they knew, I think, that I was a good protector of my unseen fake students. I was fully committed to this fake teaching thing. Now, what is my point in telling you all of this, beloved? Part of it is simple. I really do want to encourage parents and families to let their children play school for as long as they want. Let them imagine, let them rehearse, let them build inner worlds. Let them take what looks small and childish and turn it into something meaningful. But the deeper reason I'm telling you this tonight is because as I was preparing for the final day of Gevurah, Yahweh began to show me something about playing school. He began to show me how deeply this part of my childhood helped shape, form, and establish my relationship with him. Tonight, we are exploring Malchut within Gevurah. Malchut has to do with manifestation and expression, an embodiment. Uh, it is the point where what has been formed inwardly is brought into the world in a visible way, meaning we've studied Gevurah for the past 6 days. We've hopefully grown in understanding how to rectify inward components of Gevurah, and Malchut is all about taking all of that inward work and then expressing it in a very visible and external way. Gevurah has to do with discipline and restraint and structure and refinement and boundaries and judgment. So when we come to Malchut within Gevurah, we are dealing with the embodied expression of discipline, or the embodied expression of judgment. We are dealing with what disciplined inward work looks like once it takes form in the world. It is about what the fruit of a life that has been trained and clarified and ordered before Yahweh is to do with that training. And that brings me to the concept of prayer. In Hebrew, tefillah is one of the primary words used for prayer. The root of tefillah actually carries a meaning that is all about Gevurah, meaning the root means judging and differentiating and clarifying and deciding. All of this is really connected to prayer, clearly. And it is thus connected to Gevurah, because those are all meanings that actually form Gevurah. You know, when we think about prayer, sometimes we might believe that it's about making a list of requests to Yahweh, but that is not what prayer is. It is a process of clarification. It is about refining ourselves. It is about where the heart, being in a moment where the heart is searched and ordered and examined and strengthened and aligned with Father Yahweh. Prayer is where we come to understand more clearly who we are meant to become, and what must be shaped in us to move in that direction. The mitzvah of prayer is described in Torah tradition as a service of the heart. And that language is important because prayer is not simply the movement of the mouth. It's not simply reciting words. It's not simply saying things and not having any attachment to it or feeling to it or believing in it. And that tells us that prayer is inward spiritual work that is the service of the heart, and it is the soul coming into disciplined contact with Yahweh. And so, as I sat with that truth, Yahweh said to me that I should explore how playing school as a child helped prepare me for this very thing. And once he said it, I could see it everywhere. Playing school taught me how to believe. It taught me how to hold myself inside a reality that was unseen and yet fully real to me. It taught me how to dedicate myself to a role and return to it daily, meaning I played school probably every day after school for, if not an hour, a couple of hours. You know, it taught me how to stay committed without being disturbed by what other people thought. Like, I didn't care what the other kids thought about me wanting to stay inside and play school versus go outside. I didn't care what my family thought about me talking to nothing in their mind, but everything in my mind. It taught me how to study the skill of teaching in order to improve my own practice. Yes, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily in school learning. I would say that I was in school studying my teacher's performance, rating it, and then deciding if I'd incorporate it in my fake school after school. um, it taught me how to spend long stretches of time inhabiting something with complete sincerity. And it taught me how to stretch my consciousness toward a truth that was not physically visible, but still deeply present. And all of that is really what prayer requires. It is what we have to build in order to be prayerful in the way that Yahweh wants us to be prayerful. Tefillah or prayer asks you to speak into the unseen with complete conviction. It asks you to stand before Yahweh with the certainty that He is present, even though He's not physically standing in front of you in the way that a human being would. Prayer asks you to relate to what is real before it becomes visible, meaning you've got to stretch your consciousness of what truth is, right? Truth doesn't mean something that has already happened. Truth means something that you can see in prayer, that you can see in the spiritual realm, and then that you act on because it is true, although it is not yet present physically. And that, all of that, is why one of the most powerful things that we have as a faculty, as a attribute, as a piece of us is our imagination. Imagination, while people want to frame it as some fantasy in a shallow sense, it is really a vessel of spiritual perception. It can train the heart to grasp what the eyes cannot yet see. It can expand a person's capacity to dwell in truth before that truth has fully manifested, like I just mentioned, in the natural realm. And a person who cannot enter the unseen world with certainty will absolutely struggle to pray deeply. A person who cannot stand inside an invisible reality with conviction will often remain trapped at the surface level of prayer. And so that is why I can say with confidence that playing school helped form the way I pray. It absolutely helped build that vessel that now allows me to talk to Yahweh like He is right in front of me. It has helped form in me the ability to stand before Him as a student, as a sponge, as humble as possible. And then, right after this, rise from prayer ready to teach. It's helped establish a kind of spiritual flexibility and confidence in me that does not depend on any formal credentials. I don't need a theology degree to speak with Yahweh intimately or to speak about Him boldly after spending time in His presence. And prayer has made that real in me, and I can trace most of that capacity all the way back to this little child with a whiteboard and markers in a fake classroom. You know, when I pray, I laugh with Yahweh. I cry with Yahweh. I bring Him my joy. I bring Him my questions. Oh, I can't even tell you. I pester Yahweh with my questions. I bring Him my curiosity and my frustrations. I bring Him my wonder. I bring Him my compassion. I say, oh, Yahweh, I just know how I am. Sorry, you got to deal with this for 8 billion people. I speak to Him with sincerity, and I know how to do that because I built that capacity for that kind of engagement a long time ago. As a child, I sympathized with imaginary students. I corrected them, I joked with them, I nurtured them. On special days, meaning on a day where I had seen my teacher cry in school, I would come home and cry in my own classroom too. All of it was done with sincere feeling and with belief, and it was done as though what was happening in front of me was real. When we think about this concept of imagination, and I connect it to the Amida, I can absolutely see the through line, meaning, in our tradition before beginning the Amida, because, there's a lengthy amount of prayers that Israel does before they begin the Amida, because the Amida is the sort of the climax, and you've got to do a lot of work to get to that climax, right? It's kind of like a roller coaster. And so in our tradition before beginning the Amida, we take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward. And this marks and acts as a transition. It signifies that we are moving from the prior prayers into a more direct standing before the King. We are preparing ourselves to enter that moment with greater awareness, greater reverence, and greater intentionality. But to do this meaningfully requires imagination in the deepest and best sense. It requires the capacity to understand that by faith, by our consciousness, and by disciplined inward focus, you are truly standing before Yahweh. Thus, I am going to take 3 steps back and take 3 steps forward, and I'm going to enter this place. A person whose inner world has not been trained toward the unseen can find this difficult to even imagine or do. A person whose imagination has been enlarged can step into it with realness and life. One of my favorite scenes in the Brit Hadashah that reflects this kind of reality is Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane. In those accounts, Yeshua prays with such intensity and such clearly use of his consciousness and imagination, meaning he wasn't just talking words, reciting emptiness. He was pouring out his soul. He was wrestling. He was yielding. He was speaking with the kind of realness that comes when prayer is truly the service of the heart. And that brings me to one of my favorite scenes in the Brit Hadashah, because I think Yahshua models something here that we often read too quickly. In Matithia 26:36 through 45, Yahshua goes with his disciples to Gethsemane. He tells them to sit while he goes over there to pray. And then he takes Peter and 2 sons of Zebedee with him, and he begins to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. He tells them plainly that his soul is overwhelmed with sorrow, even unto death. And then he says, stay here and watch. I want you to hear that scene afresh tonight. Yahshua is inviting them closer, meaning he is saying, watch me do this. Watch me step into the unseen. Watch me speak into the realm you cannot see with your eyes. Watch me engage Yahweh with full consciousness, with full imagination and honesty, and with full intensity. Watch me show you how to talk to Yahweh as if he is right in front of me, as in watch me show you how prayer works. Then he goes a little farther. He falls on his face, it says in Torah. He prays, he speaks and pours himself out before the Father. He is stretching the full power of his soul toward Yahweh in that garden and demonstrating that prayer is not some shallow mouthing of words, that it is an act of concentrated, conscious engagement. It is a deep exercise of the mind and heart and spirit and imagination all turn toward Yahweh. And then he comes back and finds them sleeping. It's I know it's supposed to be a moment of great seriousness, but I couldn't help but chuckle as I read it sort of from this new lens tonight, because I thought about, well, Yahshua is here saying, can you all watch me so I can teach you how to pray? And then he comes back and he's like, you guys are sleeping? And what does he say to Peter? He says, could you not watch with me 1 hour? And I think that question is, it carries a lot of weight, right? Meaning Yahshua wanted them to remain awake to that moment and stay present. And he wanted them to learn by watching him do the thing. And then he says, watch and pray, lest you enter into trial. The spirit indeed is eager, but the flesh is weak. Meaning he is teaching them that prayer is how a person gets strengthened for the hour they are in. Prayer is how the willing spirit gets aligned and fortified. It is how the inner world becomes strong enough to hold what the outer world is demanding of you. And then Yahshua goes away a second time and prays again. And he returns and again finds them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. And then he leaves them and goes away and prays a third time, saying the same words. While, I can chuckle at this fact that we can clearly see, again, if you can build your compassion for Father Yahweh through this. I mean, I feel like this is a lot of us. Yahweh's like, I'm showing you the way and you guys keep falling asleep. I'll show you again and you guys keep falling asleep. So you can build some compassion for Yahweh. But it also tells us in all these moments how prayer in this way has to be sustained. It's not some, prayer is not some casino where you go and you pull down the lever and, you score and then you're done because you got your money. No, that's not what prayer is. Prayer is something that you must do in the same heartfelt way with sustained engagement. And so when I read that scene, I hear Yahshua saying to them, watch me play school. Watch me speak into the unseen with total seriousness. Watch me engage the invisible world as the truest world. Watch me use the full power of consciousness and faith in the presence of Yahweh. And this is all so that you can learn how to pray. Children understand how to commit to an unseen world with sincerity. Yahshua in Gethsemane is doing that at the highest level. He is engaging the unseen realm with complete realness and showing his Talmudim, or at least trying to, if they can stay awake, how prayer works when it comes from the heart. So tonight I invite you into this practice of playing school for 5 minutes, truly. I want you to stand or sit somewhere and speak out loud like you are teaching a classroom. Let yourself feel the reality of speaking to those you cannot see. Let yourself inhabit this unseen audience and let your voice go into that space and your heart become sincere there, because you have to remember or discover what it means to speak into the invisible with confidence. And then after those 5 minutes, I want you to pray. Pray from your heart. Speak to Yahweh directly. Bring him your real thoughts and your questions and your gratitude, your longing and your tears or your joy. Speak with the kind of certainty that says, you are here. You are in front of me. You hear me. This is a real encounter. And I want to add one more practice for today. Watch how children play. Really watch them. Watch how they can enter a world completely out of nowhere. Watch how they believe in what they are doing with the full sincerity of everything in them. Watch how they speak with sincerity in spaces adults would call imaginary. Watch how they treat the unseen as fully present and how their whole being gets involved. Really watch how belief, imagination, and heartfelt knowing all come together in one act. Because when you watch, I think you'll see that children are great teachers as it relates to the power of prayer. If you pay attention, they will show you that prayer is deeply connected to all of those things. They will show you what it looks like to give yourself fully to a reality that cannot be measured by the physical eye alone. And for those of you who raise children or help raise them, protect that gift in them. Feed it, encourage it, make room for it. Their imagination is not a small thing. It can become part of the very architecture of their spiritual life, like it was for me. May tonight be a night and a day where your prayer becomes more alive and where your heart becomes clearer and your faith becomes more embodied and connected to Yahweh, because you learn to be alive in your prayer. You learn to be more real and conscious in your prayer. And may you recover the power of speaking into the unseen with sincerity. Learn from Yahshua in that garden. And may you learn from the children. And may your tefillah, your prayer, become the living expression of Malchut within Gevurah. Shalom, friends.
Today is day 14 of the counting of the Omer. If you were able to say the blessing and the prayer last night, then we invite you to say both the blessing and the prayer tonight. If you weren't able to say the prayer last night, then we invite you to just say the prayer tonight. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al seferat ha'omer. Blessed are you, Father Yahweh, King and ruler of the universe, who has set us apart with his mitzvot and commanded us concerning the counting of the Omer. Today is 14 days, which is 2 weeks of the Omer. May the merciful one restore unto us the service of the Bet HaMikdash to its place, speedily in our days. Amen. Selah. For the choir master, a song with instrumental music, a psalm. May Yahweh be favorable to us and bless us. May he make his countenance shine upon us forever. That your way be known on earth, your salvation among all nations. The nations will extol you, O Yahweh. All the nations will extol you. The nations will rejoice and sing for joy. For you will judge the peoples justly and guide the nations on earth forever. The peoples will extol you, O Yahweh. All the peoples will extol you. For the earth will have yielded its produce, and Yahweh our mighty one will bless us. Yahweh will bless us, and all from the farthest corners of the earth shall fear him. We implore you, by the great power of your right hand, release the captive, accept the prayer of your people, strengthen us, purify us, Yasam One. Mighty One, we beseech you, guard as the apple of the eye those who seek your oneness. Bless them, cleanse them, bestow upon them forever your merciful kadoshness, powerful, set apart one, in your abounding goodness, guide your congregation. Only an exalted one, turn to your people who are mindful of your kadoshness. Accept our supplication and hear our cry, you who know secret thoughts. Blessed be the name of the esteem of his kingdom, forever and ever. Master of the universe, you have commanded us through Moshe, your servant, to count Sephirat HaOmer in order to purify us from our evil and uncleanness. As you have written in your Torah, you shall count for yourselves from the day following the day of rest, from the day on which you bring the Omer as a wave offering. The counting shall be for 7 full weeks. Until the day following the 7th week shall you count 50 days, so that the souls of your people Israel may be cleansed from their defilement. Therefore, may it be your will, Yahweh our mighty one, and the Almighty One of our scriptural forefathers, that in the merit of the Sephirat HaOmer, which I counted today, the blemish that I have caused in the Sephirah, Malchut, Shebe, Gevurah, be rectified, and I may be purified and set apart with supernal kadoshness. May abundant bounty thereby be bestowed upon all the worlds. May it rectify our nefesh, ruach, and neshama from every baseness and defect. And may it purify and set us apart with your supernal kadoshness. Amen. Selah.